Burton. We're here to introduce you to episode 4 of PiñaTalks with Corina Burton here. Now, we're going to touch on a lot of interesting things today. Now, even though our prior guests were mostly in blockchain and fintech, I think there needs to be something said about entrepreneurship and the pattern of success. I think no matter what you do, there's always a few governing principles that make things work. You know, that could be perseverance, that could be hard work, that could be preparation. So I wanted to hear it from an expert. So Corina, you've been very successful in scaling businesses, and you happen to own a few businesses as well. So CPR Construction Cleaning, CPR Productions, to name a few. So what I wanted to know, how did you know you wanted to be an entrepreneur? And when was that moment?
You know, I don't know if I really had an epiphany about becoming an entrepreneur. My family's background, grandpa was an entrepreneur. My dad was an entrepreneur and my uncle's an entrepreneur. So it's just kind of been in our family dynamics. And when I started going into the work world, I realized that I didn't really want to work for someone else. I wanted to create something because I've always been a very creative person. And it was an outlet for me to be able to continue that creativity, right? I grew up doing theater and acting, and I loved that. And it was a part of my creative outlet that I was able to come out to the world and create. But I didn't think of myself as doing that for the rest of my life. So for me to become an entrepreneur was to continue to develop that creative part of myself in my brain.
Wow, that's awesome. And I could certainly relate to the sentiment. I feel like I perform at my best when I manage myself versus being managed, by others. But I remember when I connected with you about a month ago, and I believe you have a very incredible backstory, and I would characterize it by perseverance, motivation, and pure grit. And I think no matter who you are, where you're from, these things work when applied correctly. And I think when you have, I guess you could say, the right kind of governance inside your spirit or, your soul or whatever, you may call it. So I'd like to know a little bit about, and I think certainly the audience would like to know about where you're from originally.
So I grew up in a really small town just outside of Yosemite National Park. My senior class was about 200 students. And, when I was growing up, and this is obviously like many of us who are obviously our age, when you're in your 30s, right? You didn't grow up with technology.
Right.
So if you are from a small town, that's really all you know. We didn't have the internet. I didn't know what it was like. I didn't know big towns with malls. And so I had so much time to daydream. And I realized looking back that I did a lot of that. I daydreamed, and I really carried that with me into my adulthood. And that's where like manifestation really happened. It's when you're allowing yourself to dream and dreaming the things that you want. So, when I graduated from high school, I knew I wanted to go into a big town. I wanted to go to the city, and I wanted to know what life was like that way. So, I went to a school in Southern California, just outside of Anaheim. Sorry, I
okay.
Had a
no worries. I think Anaheim, I think like Disneyland, right? Is that area? Okay.
Yeah.
So I was initially going to say Disneyland, and I was like, maybe I should actually say the name of the city. So I went to Cal State Fullerton, and I actually was accepted into their theater program. So I was going there for theater, and my life didn't really go as I had intended initially. So I decided at a very young age to get married. I got married at a very young age. and I started a family. So essentially, everything that I had dreamed, everything that I had wanted, it actually ended up dissipating. It went away, and I just focused on being a mother. So from the time I was
Right.
18 years old, obviously to today I'm a mother, but all those years I focused on being a mom until I was about 29, and I decided to change my life and make steps and make certain choices to change my entire dynamics and become the person and the entrepreneur and the mother that I am today.
Now, leading up to today, July 23rd, 2021, we're going to dig into the weeds, if you wish, as far as some of the backstory. But being a parent and being a young parent, how did you balance the pressures of everyday life, which is obviously very tough for everybody? Nobody leaves this life unscathed, to say the least. And at the same time, when having a child, the immense sense of purpose. That can kind of be a juggling act a lot of times because, this is in many ways a type of I wouldn't say burden, but this is essentially a plateau you have to overcome. And this is, I guess you could maybe say, another plateau on top of another plateau to overcome to get to where you want. So being as you were back then, how were you able to do that?
So, what's really interesting is that I had said at the beginning that I was a big dreamer.
Yeah.
I literally wanted to explore the world. I wanted to do so many things, and I essentially chose to cut my own wings and stop. When you become a parent, obviously me, a mother, you have this innate nature to want to just be consumed in being a parent, and that's all
Right.
you focus on. And so for the first probably 10 years of being a mother, I eventually lost my own self-identity. And that dreaming part of who I was literally dying inside. And that was who Corina is. Corina's a dreamer. She's a doer. She can achieve anything that she puts her mind to. But yet I got to a point where I lost my own self-identity because I was so consumed in being a mother, which sounds very strange because you think a mother, that's what you should be doing 100% consuming
Sure.
your children and their well-being. And, they say that when you become a mother, you choose to sacrifice everything for them, which is 100% true. But at the same time, like being a healthy person, emotionally, psychologically, you still are a human being. You inside, you never change. You don't die. You don't, put that person basically in a box in a closet and put away just because you become a mother. And so when I made the decision to focus on myself while being a mother, I did have to go through some feelings that I was not being a good parent, that I was neglecting them, that I couldn't go to every single activity at the children's school. And I made these decisions to not do that just because it was very important for me as a parent and as a role model to be a really good example for my children. And that being always making sure that Corina is taken care of, just like my children are being taken care of. And so I had to learn a balance and understand that it's not a bad thing to put yourself alongside your children, right? Like, you're not putting yourself first.
Right.
You're making sure that mom's healthy so that she can be a healthy mom for the children. Because your children really, they look up to you. They watch you every single day. And if they see someone who's not thriving, who's not genuinely happy, who has a sensation of loss, sadness, your children are going to sense that, and it is
Oh
going
yeah.
to impact them. And so I made a decision that I wanted my children to look at me and say, my mom fought for her dreams. There's been hardships, but I've seen my mom persevere through everything. So I'm not scared to achieve my dreams. I'm not scared to go out and do what I need to do so that I can be the best me and the best parent and the best partner in life.
Right. That's a very good point to bring up, and even personally, I had to struggle with that as well. How do I reconcile my dreams versus the needs of family? And that could be a very, very different balancing act. And there is a sense that part of you does die or is dying when you essentially neglect everything about yourself and literally put everybody and everything in front of you first. And it's a trap in some ways because you think you're doing the right thing, but you're not operating at the best you can. So you don't realize that you're kind of undermining yourself in the process. And I think other people, and I think especially kids and other family members, will see that. So I think getting to that point and realizing that it's a very big deal. So what I want to know from you is, I guess you could say, the kind of skyrocketing process where you have this realization, and then all of a sudden, I think you probably start putting the pieces together, right, of what you need to do and what you want to do. Is that right?
There was my epiphany moment of making this decision of like life changes for me was my oldest daughter was probably around 7 years old, and she was playing soccer, and she was really hard on herself, and she was sharing with me how she felt like she wasn't really very good and all the other
Right.
girls were a lot better. And I sat there and told her, you're amazing, you can do anything you want and you put your mind to, you can achieve. And my words to her actually impacted me and made me realize that I was actually being hypocritical, and
Wow.
that I wasn't being an honest person to myself. Of course, I believe that for my children, but yet I'm not doing those same things. So how can I share that to my children? How can I
Right.
be a good example for my children if I'm not believing those things in myself? So for me, that was the epiphany of saying, I need to make this change. I need to, figure out how I'm going to make these transitions. And everything was just a learning curve. And it's very much just like entrepreneurship, honestly.
Right.
You think you can find this foundation and you know what you're doing, these are your goals, and life as it has it, it doesn't always fall in that order or even in that way. And just see this roller coaster. But then when you look back, you realize that when you felt like you went 10 steps back, you actually went in a different direction and 10 steps forward, but in a different way than you had anticipated. So there's the one thing I can say, and this is, I really love to be able to combine personal and business. Personal, I think people think like, all the nitty gritty things about me. I'm very transparent and authentic person online, but I still don't share every single personal aspect of my life. But personal business is humanizing, and it also correlates together. They follow the same life plans, same life tracks. So I had just come with this conclusion, especially years later, realizing that as long as you have a foundation of what your goals are, as long as you are committed to being, what your desire is. For me, it was being authentic. It was being real. It was not being afraid anymore and taking chances. You have one life to live and live it.
Absolutely.
So this is my foundation, and in my companies, and my company, and then my company grew into another company, and then so on and so forth. So I feel like if you have a foundation in your life of your goals, or even your integrity, the things that you want to represent, it's going to eventually get you where you want to be. If that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And how would you describe your current success? So your companies. Tell us about your companies itself. Tell us about your recent success, especially during the lockdowns. And some of the, perhaps we can flesh out some of the details, on that.
Yeah. So mid 2019, I came up with this idea of creating a construction cleaning company. And I was out to lunch with who's my business partner. And we have always discussed for years. I've known him for several years, and we would always tease back and forth how we wanted to start a business together. My background is all in business development, building relationships, B2B, sales, marketing. And he's a literal genius when it comes to operations. And so we were like, this is like the perfect combination. We should start a business together.
Right.
We just didn't know what that looked like. And it literally just happened one day at lunch. I brought up the idea of construction cleaning because I knew that was a need. And I also knew opportunities of being able to be a problem solution specialist. For me, that's very important. Whatever I do, I want to be able to essentially give back to my community. So for me, I felt like I was going to one of the check marks off of my, foundation of what I wanted to create for my life. And so he loved the idea, but we both were working in a full-time job. So we thought, let's just kind of do this and see what ends up happening. So the next day, essentially, I put my feelers out to the community I know in construction. And it was the next day we had a job opportunity to go do a job walk. We started this company in Phoenix, Arizona, and now we've branched out into 6 states. But our first job was in downtown Phoenix. And so we went and walked the job, and a week later, they sent us a contract, and the contract literally catapulted our business. It was a large enough size opportunity that really made us kind of step back and be like, we got into the right industry, and let's rock and roll. But here we are still working full time. So we're both working our day jobs, going home, and then working CPR. Did that for about 4 or 5 months, and that leads us into January of 2020 when we decided to go over full time. And we have these big dreams. We're like, this is what we're going to do, and here I am with my marketing and how I'm going to network with people and go to all these events. And this is my background. This is what I know to do. I didn't have a really strong background in social media marketing. So when the pandemic hit in March, it definitely scared us. And I thought, what am I going to do? How am I going to introduce the company to, other GCs, and how are we going to build, and how are we going to grow? And that's really when I decided to kind of look forward and think, well, I don't have to meet someone in person to be able to translate my authenticity online. So that's when I started to create our business online through LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. But LinkedIn really catapulted our company. So as I just continued to create content that was humanizing, authentic, real, showing every step of our process with our clients, and showing our real workers and nothing on stage, people were really gravitating to it. And suddenly we found ourselves having opportunities outside of Arizona. People were wanting to bring us into Utah, into California, Texas, Colorado, Nevada. Every single state that we're in today has been because clients have come to us and asked us, let's partner. I see what you're doing online. It's amazing. I love the work and the passion that you guys have behind your business. And through that, we had other businesses start asking us, how are you creating this content? Like, what are you doing? There's something that you're doing that's different. And it was really an opportunity to start sharing with other people how to deliver your company online and why it's so important to put that first.
Sure.
Before what you do. And so then that's when CPR Productions was created to give other businesses, opportunities to market in a way that's authentic instead of sales, and sharing more real life content that people are drawn to. We just do construction cleaning. Like, there's nothing really very exciting about that, really, when you think about it, right? Like, we're cleaning. But we've been able to capture the cleaners. That's what's exciting about it. They're real life people doing real life things, and they believe the team, and you can see it through the work. You can see it through the content. You can see it how it's delivered. And it's because we're not focused on the what we do. We're focused on the why we do it.
Right.
So it's been a really beautiful opportunity to help other companies develop that and really understand that big picture of sharing your why rather than your what, because your what will always follow behind your why, but your what doesn't always follow why. So
right.
it's important to share that first.
Awesome. And what states do you operate in other than Arizona? Because I know you guys have expanded quite a bit.
Yeah, so currently we're in Utah, California, Nevada, Texas, Colorado, and we're hoping Florida soon. That's one of our next ventures out there.
Give us a shout when you get there.
Definitely. I know we've been, putting some feelers out there, and we actually had clients who've asked us to go out there. It's just all about the right timing, but I believe it should be probably, I would honestly say that before the year ends, we will be in Florida.
Awesome. Excellent. So when you and I connected, we talked about some of the incredible momentum you've made scaling businesses, and how I think, your business really boomed during COVID-19. So how were you able to turn a catastrophe like COVID-19, where in most of the country things are locked down, people, jobs are going away, people are, people unfortunately are dying left and right, people don't have access to like water and food. Like, how were you able to do that in a situation where most businesses were going out of business?
Well, I mean, I definitely have to say that I feel very fortunate that construction itself, there were companies that ended up closing, but for the most part, a lot of construction was still going. I think people really just kind of hung on to that. That's what their focus was on, to keep forward. So
sure,
thank goodness that construction just kept its momentum going, especially with the very large companies. But for us, we were brand new. No one knew us in the market, truly. There had been several other businesses who offered construction cleaning.
right.
And they had the relationships, they had the clout, and we really didn't. And if it wasn't for COVID-19, though, for me personally, I wouldn't have looked inward to figuring out how to utilize social media and how it has an amazing benefit of being able to build, your business in various ways. So I think for our business, COVID-19 really helped us to look inward and find a different route that would be actually more successful and have a larger reach through utilizing social media. But once again, there are lots of people who utilize social media to boost their content, who they are, and they don't find it to be effective. And it's how you're posting. It's what you're posting and what you're delivering. So it's really looking inward and finding your why. And I'll say that 100 million times, but I've seen it. Obviously, we've grown into this company that, is working in 6 states. And like I said, we don't have salespeople going into these states and building. It's literally happening from online content that's being delivered out there. So you think if that's resonating with people on an emotional aspect where they then want to do business with you, the sky's the limit if you figure out and you know how to deliver your content the right way.
Right. And speaking of which, so it seems like the expansion of your business intersected with your social media platform, during the whole COVID-19 lockdown. So as far as your strategy, I noticed you're very candid when you post things, and you're very upbeat and motivational. But I think you would reveal parts of yourself that I don't think other people are brave enough to do. Because if I was to go on social media, a lot of people just post pictures of themselves, selfies on a Lambo, selfies on a yacht, things like that, or just like throwing cash everywhere. Now I'm wondering, as far as branding, were you ever tempted to go in that direction? And how did you figure out your winning formula? I think as far as your kind of honesty about yourself, and of course not revealing everything, but revealing very significant, important things about yourself.
Well, that's actually a really good question, because initially when I first started, my whole mentality was grow CPR. So I'm creating content for construction cleaning and then resharing it on my personal platform.
Yes.
And it really was getting the traction. People were actually then asking questions and wanting to know more about the business. But then I thought, how am I going to help other people know who I am as a business owner? Because when you feel like you know a business owner, and you can think about any of the greatest people, I'm just going to say Steve Jobs, some of the things that he has said in his career, and we all look up to him and think that he had so much greatness and had so much knowledge, but we really don't know him. Right. But it's just what social media has put out there. But so we feel like we have a sense of knowing who he is. And so, that goes for a lot of people in social media, good or bad. And it's really your persona of how you want to deliver and share with the world who you are. So I wanted people to know who Corina Burton is, because that is a representation of CPR construction cleaning. So I decided I was going to share just kind of some tidbits of my personality, like who I am. And one of the posts that I posted that I realized, okay, people like this kind of content, was I had shared that I'm actually more of an introvert. I'm more naturally introverted than I am an extrovert. And in the industry I am, or doing business development, so my profession, most people are extroverts. Most people are like the first person to raise their hand in class, to be the class clowns, to be funny, to, want to be the first person volunteer. And I definitely was not that person. I will be the kind of more quiet, a little more reserved, and I find my time when I talk. And I just put out there, you don't have to be a natural extrovert to be successful in business development and sales and marketing. And I did a quick little video, and it went, for me at that time, I think I got like 1,000 likes, and I was just like crazy on LinkedIn. That's not easy.
No, definitely
it's not the easiest feat. So I was like, oh my gosh, people are actually really engaged in my content. And I thought, okay, well, this is working. So I'm going to try again and just share a little bit of my background, a little bit of who I am, and help people understand that when I say that I care as a business owner, these are the reasons why. Because I've been through X, Y, and Z. And it has gone through phases. There have been moments where it's been hard. I felt like a kind of a pit in my stomach, like, why did I share that? People are going to judge me.
Sure.
To a point where, not that I don't care, I do care, but I realized that through this process, when I started sharing some of the things that really hurt me, like a business, I had a business failure right before I started CPR. I call it my entrepreneurial breakup that I had. It was really a bad situation. I lost a lot of money. I carried a lot of shame. I felt embarrassed, and I never wanted to share the darkest parts of what I went through, or even myself, that I was going through depression, that I had no money. I lost so much. I was about to lose my house because of the partnership, and I felt embarrassed. And when I started to share bits and pieces of my life and realizing that that's who I was, or that's what I went through, I was never that person. It was something I'd gone through. And then this is where I have been able to get myself today. It almost was a healing aspect of it. So to answer your question, when it comes to, I think we correlate, I just got a new sports car, right? Going from some dilapidated junkie car or something into a sports car. That defines that I'm now successful. So people think, if you see me next to something that is of high value, that means I'm successful. And I decided to change that perception of your strength and ability is when you look back to see where you were at your darkest and bottom of the barrel moments to where you are today, and how you were able to overcome all of those difficulties to be able to achieve where you are today. And there is no money, there is no value that is going to even compare to that. And I feel like I have the ability to relate to a larger number of people so that they can feel like, well, if Corina can do it, I can do it. Because sometimes when we see these, like a jet plane, when I see someone walking into a jet plane, I think sometimes my initial thought is, that's too difficult. I can't achieve that. That's too much money. But if you think about it in a humanizing aspect and the steps that that person took, a person can think, I can do that. I can be that way, and I can achieve these goals. So for me, it's important to share more humanizing aspects rather than material aspects.
I think that's very well put. And I think often in life, a lot of people tend to give up at their first failure. So whether that's starting a hobby, whether that is doing something bigger than I think what they normally achieve, a lot of times when people face their first failure, I think at least 70% of people will end up quitting and just think, okay, you know what? I don't want to feel like I failed again. Maybe this is not for me. So for you, how many cracks did you give, or how many attempts did you give it until you became successful as an entrepreneur? Because I recall that one partnership you discussed and maybe some other things. So how many attempts did it take you to get to where you want?
So this would actually be my third entrepreneurial journey. My first opportunity was really when I was brand new into the work world. So, my first 10 years in my 20s, I was a stay-at-home mom. So I didn't have any work experience. I didn't have my college education completed. And then when I became a single parent and was providing for my children, I was in sales. And I then learned how to create, stories, not not pretend stories, but stories and like how people can see themselves in this journey with you and why they then want to become a buyer of whatever you're selling. So I learned how to share these stories. And then I realized that through my authenticity and energy exchange with people, I was able to be successful in business development. So
Wow.
early on, there were certain people who saw this ability that I had or that I have, and they invited me to in a partnership. And there was four of us in the company. I was the only female, and there was just too many cooks in the kitchen. And
Yeah.
because I was so naive, so I preface it that I didn't have this experience. And, this is going to sound very naive, but at the time, like I didn't really have this conceptual understanding of how much really people made. I didn't understand what really financially my worth was. And so I was accepting something that was much less than what I deserved. And I was essentially being cheated. And when I had this realization that I didn't want to be a part of this company anymore, I had asked for my part of my commission because I wasn't
Sure.
receiving any commission. And unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. And I had to walk away from, being a single mom and not really making a lot of money. That was a huge blow for me. And
Right.
that's kind of when I just decided I have to keep moving forward. I can't let this hold me back. And I started working and cultivating my abilities and strengthening myself so that I could provide for my family. And then I
Right.
had another opportunity where I had someone approach me that I had worked for previously for a few years, and they wanted me to be a business partner with them. And unfortunately, that did not work out the way that it was promised. And once again, there's a reason why I was going through all of this. And at the time, it was very stressful for me to understand
Sure.
why is it that people had this desire to essentially steal from me. And, I wasn't getting paid when I was supposed to. And the agreement of what I was supposed to be earning, I had to essentially walk away from thousands and thousands of dollars that were owed to me. But I had to make that decision of, am I going to continue to let this person use me, use my abilities, and I'm going to fall flat regardless, or I need to just kind of cut the tie and move forward. And that was probably the most difficult decision that I had made, was to, once again, so this isn't the first time, this is the second time
Sure.
in 8 years that I had an experience where I had to see the hard work that I did, money that I made, and walk away from it. And it was probably 2 months later when that epiphany of creating CPR construction cleaning came into my mind. So I think if I wouldn't have left the company when I did and take on these scary but very exciting opportunities, I would not be where I am today. I would probably still be stuck thinking, oh man, this is going to work out eventually. But really, I wasn't creating something that was mine. I was being a partner with someone creating something that they had created. And I was having the opportunity to create something that I had dreamed up with my business partner. And we were
Wow.
doing it together. So, becoming an entrepreneur is not always the success of one company. You have to look at their entire journey and how many times they failed, how many times they got up. Because now coming into CPR construction cleaning, if you look at my success just based off of that company, you would think, man, that was easy for her. She just did right out.
People will only see the outside.
And it's just perfect.
Right.
But it has not been that way. And that's what was really important in sharing that message is there's so much behind the scenes of how a person has gotten there. It reminds me of that. There is a drawing that I see a post that circulates, and it's it's an iceberg, right? You see just the tip of the iceberg,
tip of the
and
iceberg.
then underneath you see how hard that person has worked to get to there. All you can see is what's on top.
Sleepless nights, debt, it kind of like lists all the things. Yeah.
Yes. And so for me, I feel like that's really been the case of my entrepreneur journey and getting to this point. And, we have a lot of success and business is going amazing, but we did start our company 100% organic. We don't have investors. We didn't have didn't have like a nest egg or anything like that to be able to start our company. Our company catapulted off of our work that we established right at the beginning. And so with that, being an organic grown company that is growing, we do face challenges and trying to maintain that because, most people who start companies typically have, a large savings, a nest egg, or, they've been given a company from their parents or, I've actually been learning that there is a lot of investors who will invest in someone's idea. So they don't even have an actual business yet. It's not even functioning. So, there's always going to be difficulties and trying to figure out how to get through them. But there's always going to be an answer. You just have to be willing to, when those hard times come, those difficult moments or challenging, you have to be able to think, I can get through this. There is an answer. I didn't get this far for nothing.
Sure.
And realize that there's something better that's going to be on the other side.
It's a wonderful message. And I wanted to know too, so breaking into the construction industry, even construction cleaning, I think, whichever aspect of the construction business it is, I would imagine much of it is very male dominated traditionally, I would imagine. Yes. So being a woman, especially back then when you were kind of slowly getting your swimming legs into being a business person, an entrepreneur, what were the things you faced that were very obvious being a woman going into the business like construction and construction cleaning and those related areas, like even in the capacity as a partner as you were?
So it's been an interesting dynamic because you have some people who are really supportive and, they see a woman in construction and majority is male. So when I'm working with project managers, I would say 95% of the time it's a man. So you have your, the men in the industry who see and understand the beauty of having masculinity and femininity together tied in, and the beauty of it and how it is really essential in business and also in construction. So you have those who are really supportive, and then you have those who, I've had moments where project managers won't look at me and talk to me. They will talk to to my business partner who is, a man. So you can just see the difference of, and I wouldn't even see respect. I would say maybe their comfortability, what they're comfortable with.
Okay.
And, this actually is a question that's asked quite frequently because, I'm not a construction worker. I am a vendor in construction. So I work in the construction industry dealing with other people who are in construction. But it's the same thing. You all are working together. And there's very, very few women even in the vendor services. So you don't find very many women in painting, electrical, drywall, plumbing. You don't see that very much. And I always like to preface it that I'm not someone who is, I want to be able to support men and women.
Sure.
I think that my role of what I would like to see change, though, is that we embrace more of having an understanding that there needs to be more women in the construction industry. So as much as I think that, there's that masculinity that's wonderful and great, and there are things that men can do, there are things that women can do, and it needs to be embraced together. And one shouldn't dominate over the other. And that's just my message for, the construction industry, that I think it's 2021 and it's time to really kind of change this whole conceptual thought of, if you're in construction, you have to look a certain way. You have to be a certain way. And it's very archaic. And I think that it's time for women to start feeling comfortable. And the way that women feel comfortable is by men's mentality changing and allowing that. Change is good. And having feminism in a construction world is really going to benefit in so many different aspects. So, with my approach, I really hope that is something I can do to help other women feel comfortable in the industry and realize that, if you don't overcome those fears, then these industries are always going to stay the same. There's going to be no change.
Right.
Yeah. So I would just want to jump in real quick, Adam.
Sure.
So I had a couple of questions for you, if you don't mind. I really love the success story that you have here and how you built a community and you tell stories and, bringing the woman's perspective to an industry that is very male dominated. I think, having women in non-traditional women positions like such where you're in, your success is coming from, we are so used to this male-dominated industry where it's just about business. There's no personal touch or getting deep into feelings. And those are things that a lot of these new businesses need, especially technology businesses, finance, all of these male-dominated businesses could use a story, because everybody likes a success story. Everybody loves a hero. Everybody likes tapping into what people don't normally talk about. It's always usually just about business when there really is more than just that when you're dealing with people. There is a human element. There's the element of building relationships and connecting with people. And a lot of that, which is very clear with what you're saying with the construction industry, it's 95% male. You never really had that before. And that's why I feel that you're such a success, is because you're bringing something that's so unique and thinking outside of the box, which is not what a lot of these men usually do. They're usually more about the business, very rigid, especially in construction. A lot of them are engineers. A lot of them, aren't really thinking about the, the feminine aspect of things. But it can really change a business, and you're proving that when people do that and actually start putting people of power in that position. And of course you built it yourself, but you have your partner, and it's a beautiful thing that what you're doing. I'm really inspired by it. And I just a couple more questions. I relate with you when it comes to moving outside of your comfort zone. it took you some time. I'm a father myself. I've worked in restaurants for many years, and I was kind of stuck in that, paycheck to paycheck every day, working 80 hours. And I never really thought about building a business until I stepped back and I started getting out of my comfort zone. And then once I got out of my comfort zone, that's when I started to realize all of this growth, and, me and Adam connected, and, things just start, if you put it out there, they will start coming. And it's really great to see somebody else's story that way too. It's inspiring. And then, do you have any suggestions for content growth and how you convey your message and what people respond to the most? And do you use any other platforms besides LinkedIn to get that message across? And what do you find that works best for you in terms of conveying your message and really making that connection with a group of people that you wouldn't typically have? Like you said, it's construction cleaning. It's not necessarily the most interesting of topics for most people, and it's very niche. And I'm sure a lot of people in the community are, within the construction business itself. But what do you find works best in connecting with those type of people in a more or less a business that's pretty black and white? You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things that I always suggest for anyone who's looking to change up their content and actually post content of value and actually have a resonating purpose where they're then seeing new potential work, they're seeing an ROI coming from their content that they're putting on social media, is establish. Every company has an established core values, but what you need to establish is your foundation, why you started what you're doing. So let's say, for instance, someone who started I'm going to say electrical company, right? There are tons of electrical companies. I mean, at least in Arizona, there are tons of them. What's going to set you apart from your competitors? It's not necessarily with the coolest high-tech gear that you're using or innovation. It's really going to establish in the emotional aspect of it, right? So if you have the ability to, and I'll just say, like, write it down so you can see it. What are your whys? Why did you start it? What is your purpose? And what do you want to see happen? And how do you want to be an impactful person in your community and those around you? Once you start with those values and that understanding of what your business, and you can do that at any stage in your business, right? Like, even if your business is 10 years old, you have any opportunity to start rebranding yourself. There's not, you don't have to establish that right at the beginning if you don't know and you're thinking, man, I want to change this up and I really want to utilize social media because my reach with social media is exponential. There is no stopping, right? You have the ability to reach all the way across the world. And so I would suggest any company to really look at those values and creating that. And then when you're creating your content, work from the inside out. And literally, when you create your content from the inside out, everything else is going to show, right? It's really like Apple. Apple always talks about their why and how they're changing, and not necessarily look at how amazing this phone is. Look at what it can do. Don't you want this phone? And that's really like competing with any other phones, right? They talk about their why. They talk about why they're doing it, how they're being innovative, and what they're doing to impact the community and what they're doing to impact our lives in an emotional way. So then we become all very drawn into a brand. And so that would, go into my next thing is, what is your brand saying about you? And that's where, once again, you then relate with your community in an emotional aspect, because people don't want to be sold. People want to build relationships. They fall in love with what you represent. So think about that. Your logo is going to be what sets you apart in visualization, right? So, the eye catching. So what does your logo say about you in that aspect of it? But really, your brand is what's going to say everything. And then your logo is just going to be kind of that icon that you see it, you know who that is. And I'm trying to remember the other questions that that you had for me. I feel like there was a few more. So, and then you also asked me about the different platforms that we've utilized. So we have grown our entire social media platforms organic. We haven't used any, boosting or paying for our content. We haven't done that on LinkedIn.
Wow.
We've utilized LinkedIn significantly because that's where we found our biggest and our greatest organic reach is coming from. But you can also find CPR Construction Cleaning on Instagram and on Facebook. And also now actually, I think CPR Productions is on TikTok. I'm just kind of putting my feelings
Sure to
out
add me.
on TikTok. I'm not really that great at it. So, but really, I would honestly say that TikTok, LinkedIn is really the most underutilized social media platform that has the greatest reach.
I agree.
have grown our company into 6 states. I'm going to reiterate that in less than 2 years because of LinkedIn. So no one can tell me different that LinkedIn doesn't have that capacity, and we never have paid for one ad running on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So I definitely would suggest, if you don't have a LinkedIn presence, and it doesn't matter what you do, I see variations going from like art to fitness, modeling, all the way to obviously, what we typically think of like, business aspects of it, construction. And it's a platform that is very, very much underutilized. And I do have a feeling that eventually over the next couple of years, especially, that people are going to start figuring it out, and it's going to lose its, organic reach. Kind of exactly what happened to Instagram. Instagram was that way. It had that capability of building people's businesses, their brands in a very organic way. And then it just became very, very saturated. And Facebook was the same way. I don't really know too much about TikTok, so I can't really give any of my feedback or opinions on that. But for us, we 100% believe in LinkedIn. So if you don't have a LinkedIn presence today, go create a page or a platform for yourself.
And team, just for some context, Corina has over 25,000 followers on LinkedIn. And that is very impressive, considering that you've done nothing else but present you effectively, organically, as organic as one can do. Now, we have a social media presence. It is slowly growing. So, and I am relatively new at this, so most of it comes from me. So whether it's myself or anybody in the audience, what advice would you give to anybody starting off in branding, starting off in marketing their product and services on social media?
So, the way that I ended up creating for myself is that I ended up creating a brand actually from a brand face, right? So then now I'm the brand face for CPR Construction Cleaning. So it's interesting how, depending on how you create your brand presence, it can kind of go in various ways. And I didn't really initially think that at the beginning. It was just what ended up happening. But I'm prefacing that is because you don't have to have it that way, right? You can just create a brand presence with your company. But okay. I had the ability to do both and create both, which then allowed me to essentially create my own personal brand through this. So people know me, Corina Burton. I'm co-owner of CPR Construction Cleaning and CPR Productions, but I also have my own brand presence. People just know me as Corina Burton, an entrepreneur, a mother, and so, you're really going to have to look to see which route do you want to take. In a year and a half, I grew from 4,000 followers, right? And this is all organic because LinkedIn is very organic, and LinkedIn caps you. You can only send out a certain amount of like LinkedIn connections. And
Very
I
true.
honestly got to a point where I knew that my content actually resonated better if people found me and wanted to connect with me because they were interested. So I went from 4,000 followers a year, probably just a little over a year ago, to 25,000 followers. And that has been because of them, you know, people who enjoy my content, which then you're going to see your success more greatly when you see it become more organic. People are going to be interested in what you're sharing. People are going to want to know more. People are going to want to be a part of this ecosystem that you're building. So first and foremost, you know, decide how you want your branding presence to be. Do you just want it to be the face of the company, or do you want to have a personal brand as well? If you want to have a personal brand, then you are going to have to be able to share some of your authenticity. And how that looks is really up to you. You don't have to, you know, be like me and share more deeper things. You can go about it however you want, but you have to find something that you can connect with your audience that helps bring value into their life, because nobody wants a salesperson. People just want to connect with people so that they can have value. And that's one of the things when I connect with people, I don't do a sales pitch. I used to a long time ago. I used to say, hey, I'm Corina Burton. This is my company. I'd love to share with you. And now instead, when I connect with people, it's, hi, thank you for connecting. I hope that my content value to you. Please let me know if there's anything that I can ever do, Corina. And that's really it. And I realize that that brings more support than what I used to do. So establish how you want your branding to look, and then create that.
Got it. And as far as your scaling successes, I know we discussed this during the screening call, and I think the viewers ought to hear this. So, what were the numbers when you took a small business and you expanded it into something larger? I was wondering if you could tell us what those numbers were.
So, sorry, are you referencing like how we started our first year to our second year?
Right.
Yeah, for sure. Of course. So, you know, obviously we were, you know, part-time our very first 4 months of business, which, you know, was able to catapult us and actually have revenue to establish us on our own 2 feet. But for 2020, we actually revenued just about $1 million. For 2021, we are on record to revenuing actually $3 to $5 million this year. So
wow,
we're really excited about that, and we honestly are very, very hopeful for significant growth in the pipeline for 2022, especially you know, growing into various states. When we go into Florida, it's going to be a massive opportunity for us. So yes, we've been able to, you know, grow our business, and, you know, during a pandemic, and it's really
impressive.
Utilizing, it's not just utilizing social media, but it's establishing your why, sharing your why authentically online, and creating a brand presence that people find value in, whether it's construction, cleaning, painting, Bitcoin, it doesn't matter. It's just bringing value to the people that you're connected with so that they feel drawn into seeing your content and then supporting you.
Awesome. And before we wrap it up, I have just 2 more questions. Are there any projects that you want to talk about quickly and share with everybody? And B, what would you leave everybody as far as a motto or personal philosophy?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm really excited that for me, my personal brand has been growing, and I've been able to create coaching programs for people who want to become entrepreneurs, or even wanting to change their entire mindset. People who've gone through a lot of trauma or difficulties in their background.
Where can they find your coaching program?
So I have a website. It's just CorinaBurton.com. You can find the coaching programs there. You can sign up for the newsletters and,
Awesome.
Be connected in that way. And then also we are launching, and I just announced this yesterday, my podcast, which I'll be hosting. It's called The Authentic Entrepreneur. So I'm really excited about that. It's going to be able to help bring value to other people who are, trying to understand the entrepreneur journey, and to feature, like I said, there is these icebergs, and people just see the tip of the icebergs, and there's so much behind it. And, to be able to give a platform and a voice for people to share what that has been like, so people have an understanding of the clarity instead of just seeing yachts and jet planes and all the money thrown around. I want to get real and authentic, and I want people to feel,
and it's been working very well, to say the least.
Yeah, but you can find all of that on my website, CorinaBurton.com, and also on my LinkedIn. You can follow me there.
Awesome.
Instagram.
Right, and finally, your personal motto, personal philosophy you would leave with.
My personal philosophy is that if I can do this, anyone can. I fully 100% believe that. I wasn't born with, I truly do not believe I was born with anything that's different than anyone else. I just found my why, and I have not let go. And I know that anyone has the capability of doing that. And so if I can be somebody to help them through that, then that's what I'm here to do.
That's awesome.
Very nice.
And unless there's anything else, I wanted to say, Corina, it was an immense pleasure and honor to have you on our 4th episode of PiñaTalks. I can't wait to see what you have in store for us for your new podcast and some of the things you're working on. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. I'm so excited that I was able to be on this show. You guys are awesome.
Glad to have
really
you.
Appreciate you.
Thank you very much. This is Randy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Corina.
It was awesome.